Well, everybody, thanks again for tuning in to another edition of the Line of Scrimmage. I'm your host, Ryan Neff. The cheese steak eating fool next to me is Delco Dave. Dave, how you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. How you been, Ryan? I'm just happy I was up and running this week, man. It was a long week last week with the kitchen flooding and pipe bursting. We're back to positive temperatures here in Lincoln, so that's nice. We've been in the 30s for a few days now, man. But how you holding up?
Holding up, supposed to warm up, supposed to be raining the next 3 days. In fact, I think they said on Thursday it's going to be like 64 degrees here. So, not your typical January weather, not typical Nebraska weather either, for that matter.
Yeah.
Out there in Lincoln. So, want to start off the show. I don't like starting off the show with Jim Harbaugh, but there's too much like speculation and stuff like that around him. So right now, from all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to go to the Chargers. They're close to getting a deal done. NFL Network reporter Mike Garafalo said Tuesday, we are now in the zone where something could happen between the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh in the near future as the two sides are set to meet for a second time. I know they've made him a strong financial offer. What that offer is, it hasn't come out yet. Uh, he's a California guy, and if people remember, it was back in, and I'm just trying to look over some of my notes here. Uh, I think it was, yeah, he spent two of his final NFL seasons in 99 2000 with the Chargers. So that's when he was still playing. He appeared in 29 games and starting 17 at quarterback. So he has some sort of ties to the Chargers when they were in San Diego. So I said back in November, if he won a national title, the Los Angeles Chargers were probably the team he was going to go to. Justin Herbert's his type of quarterback. He's a pocket passer. He's not like a Josh Allen. He's not like a Patrick Mahomes. He is a pure pocket passer. They have places or pieces in place offensively. Defensively they would have to shore it up. I know it says that they're in the zone of getting something done in the near future, but I'm going to just call it now. He's going to be the next coach of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that's where it's going. I mean, Stanford, San Francisco, California guy in general played there. All the ties are there. Plus, it's a great situation. He's going to, I mean, opinions vary on Herbert, but his stats are there. He's performed admirably. He is at worst, he's an above average quarterback in the NFL, which is what you need to compete and win. Playmakers there. Yep, Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler on the wrong side of 30 right now, but still productive playmakers. Mike Williams, if we ever stay healthy. Quentin Johnson's a developmental talent. Like, they got a ton of stuff right there. That's a great situation to walk into and be successful right away. It's a desirable position. It's in a great location. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, that's where I want to go. There are not too many other places that would rival that.
So, hey, Mickey Delaney says, "Hey guys, how you both? We're doing outstanding, Mickey. Hope you're doing well as well."
Yeah, appreciate you checking in, Mickey.
Um, there's another team that might come into the mix. Like, well, first of all, if Michigan just throws in the keys to the kingdom and says, "Do whatever the hell you want," which basically he's done whatever the hell he wants anyway. They offer him a lucrative deal at Michigan where he can't turn it down. There's one other team that, from what I'm reading, might make a play, and that's Minnesota. Minnesota are great offensively. Their defense is young enough where it can be improved. But again, the whole Kirk Cousins thing, I was never high on Kirk Cousins. I thought the Kirk Cousins experiment there was done 2 years ago. I don't think he was ever going to bring you a title there. So Minnesota would be an intriguing place to go. You're playing indoors half the season. So not sure he would go there just because he's a California guy. And I think he's probably sick of the Midwest, to be quite honest with you. And I think he just might want to go to the comfy confines of California. So we'll see. I don't think he's going to look. This would be his 10th year at Michigan if he decides to come back. And he's got nothing left to prove. Just like Nick Saban, after 3 national titles, had nothing left to prove. But he still came back. The only, like I said, keys to the kingdom at Michigan, and maybe he wouldn't want to come back to Michigan to see if they could defend the title. He's probably not going to go back-to-back anyway. but that's the only way I can see him going back to Michigan.
Yeah, no, I think he's not going back to Michigan. I think he's done there. I'm pretty sure he's going to LA no matter what. I think he's going to the NFL no matter what. It looks like it's LA. I know he had 2 interviews with Atlanta as well, which is another solid situation, but you're still missing the quarterback. Desmond Ritter doesn't seem like the answer, which is a shame because I know you were high on Ritter. I liked Ritter. He looked good coming out of college. He looked good. He looked like he had all the tools there, but just didn't put it together. Maybe the right coach can get it out of him, and he can be an answer somewhere. But yeah, it seems like for Harbaugh, it's LA or bust at this point. So yeah, I don't think he's going back to Michigan. I guess I shouldn't say LA or bust. It looks like it's NFL or bust, but LA is the lead runner.
Just to let everybody know, at 9:00, Mr. Bernie Wilson will be joining the program to discuss San Diego State football. San Diego State, obviously part of the Mountain West Conference. Need to pick his brain about where the Mountain West Conference might go, where the San Diego State program is, so all that good stuff. One of the things I forgot to mention a couple of weeks ago, and I found this quite interesting because we always harp on the NIL and like other stuff. An Ohio State football player is an offensive lineman. His name was Carson Hintzman. So he went on a podcast. It's called the B&B podcast. He got maybe a little bit too candid about stuff. I don't know if he was just aggravated the way the season went. So I'm just going to read some of it to you. In the podcast, Hintzman claimed that the Buckeyes had far fewer practices ahead of the Cotton Bowl than they did for their bowl game prep last season, replacing them with light workouts instead. Okay. He also alleged that the Miami Hurricanes offered former Ohio State commits Justin Scott and Jordan Lyle massive amounts of money to flip their commitments, and claimed that Ohio State, and you see where I'm going with this, and claimed that Ohio State doesn't really like to pay guys a whole lot in the form of NIL payments, claiming that offensive linemen in particular don't get paid at Ohio State.
I love it. The NIL and this stuff had such layers and drama to college football. Listen, I understand the purity of the game and that standpoint. I get it. The old heads don't like it, but from a pure drama and entertainment standpoint, I hope conspiracy theories like this come out every year.
He goes further.
Oh, good. Keep going.
Hintzman also compared the current culture of the program under Day to the culture under previous head coach Urban Meyer, indicating that Meyer's practices and workouts were much more difficult and asked a lot more players physically. He also spoke candidly about fights during practice and his disdain for his current strength and conditioning goals.
I love how anybody's propping up Urban Meyer over any other coach. That's awesome. Good for Urban Meyer getting some positive press right there.
I mean, Ohio State linemen don't get paid enough.
They don't.
So where would you want to go? It's going to be a bidding. Well, Ohio State doesn't pay their offensive linemen. I've been here for 2 years. Oh, Michigan pays their offensive linemen twice as much. Well, guess where I'm going to go? Boom.
Come to Nebraska. Rules building a program, baby. Come on through.
Yeah, free cheesesteaks for the whole time you're there. So I just forgot to mention that, and it just caught me as I was reading it the first time. I took a double take and I had to go read a second time, just because this is where we're headed.
I hope that's part of bowl season every year. I want those podcasts coming out every single year during bowl season.
Oh my God.
I want to do like a whodunit episode all the time, trying to figure out what conspiracy theory is legit.
Some of the other news and notes from around the country, and of course my little tablet's freezing up. San Diego State went out, or not San Diego State, I'm sorry, San Jose State went out and hired former Navy coach Ken Niumatalolo. I hope I'm not butchering his name too. Had a great run at Navy, great coach. The reason why he was ousted from Navy is because they had 3 losing seasons. But he had great success there. He won 109 games, which was the most ever at Navy. I think they made something like 10 bowl games out of his 12 seasons there. He He won at least 9 games 6 times. Look, winning it Army and Navy and Air
Yeah,
Force is
that's
extremely
tough.
difficult. So
Yeah, that's
it's
tough to do. Yeah.
um, he's a Hawaii native. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, it kind of hit the program hard because, ladies and gentlemen, not every look Navy, Air Force, Army, those players that go there or for service and academics, they cannot accept NIL money. They can't. So it's going to be even more difficult for programs like that. Uh, but San Jose State has had decent success in the last couple of years. I think it's a fantastic hire. I know it's a little bit, stepping down on a totem pole a little bit, maybe from where like Navy was. Uh, but he's had a taste of not having NIL, and now he's going to have a taste of NIL. San Jose State, one of the middle tier programs across the country. So I think it's a fantastic hire. He's been at UCLA the last couple seasons, so he's had tutelage under Chip Kelly. So I think it's a great hire. He's just had success everywhere he's been.
Wait, so you mentioned Chip Kelly. I've been seeing some things that Chip might be getting some traction as a potential offensive coordinator at the NFL. Do you think Chip ends up going back to the bigs?
I mean, does this style really work in the NFL anymore? From what he tries to run now, maybe he's like curtailed his offensive schemes to maybe a little bit more pro style. Uh, but he was big on run pass option. Him, Urban Meyer, a couple other coaches. Jim Harbaugh doesn't like to run the RPO. He is strictly a pro style offense, two tight end sets. He actually uses a fullback. Um, so I think Chip Kelly should probably stay where he is at least another year, see how it goes, especially jumping to the Big Ten. He might have a little bit more success just because you're going to be playing teams like Northwestern and Indiana and Rutgers and Maryland. So I think he should stay put.
I mean, Chip Kelly's one of the characters of the game. I always appreciated his personality. So for me, I always like seeing him have a big. I will always side with the entertainment value of things. So like putting a microphone and a bigger stage in front of Chip Kelly, I'm down for it.
What else did I see? Oh, unfortunately, Uga the 10th, which is the Bulldogs mascot. He is the most winningest mascot in the history of Georgia football. He unexpectedly passed away.
Oh man, R.I.P.
Um, doesn't really say. Well, let me see if it says how old he was. I don't think I even wrote it down. Yeah, but he was the most decorated. And the English Bulldog's been part of the Bulldog mascot since 1955. Um, he was born May 27, 2013. So 11-year run. And his tenure as mascot, Georgia went 91-18. So
Dude, that's gonna be tough to follow for Uga the. Well, he was the 10th. Uga the 11th is coming up next, right?
so it'll be Uga the 11th.
Well, yeah, that's
The
gonna be tough
next
to
one.
follow, man. That's tough to follow there.
Um, I came across the Iowa State illegal gambling thing. This is a real in-depth article. It was by Adam Rittenberg, ESPN senior writer. I would encourage everybody to go read it. The in-depth, uh, there's just too much to explain. But there was an agent that they had stuck in there investigating the top-notch players for Iowa and Iowa State. And basically the agent was saying what they were asking him to do was illegal. Again, there's just so much to go into. When they contacted the DCI about this, the DCI does not comment on ongoing court proceedings. Well,
Didn't one of the it was the Iowa kicker or punter. He was betting the under on Iowa games, right? That was one of the big things, right? He was betting the under,
one of
and
them.
he's the kicker, right? So that's my thing. Listen, with gambling taking over all aspects of sports, it's all over the place. It's gonna be fully legalized soon everywhere. Nebraska's one of the last holdouts, so like you know, please send your prayers my way. But eventually it's gonna be legal everywhere. It's taking over all aspects. If you're not betting on your team, and if you want to take it even further, say don't bet on your league. Like you should be able to bet on whatever you want, though. Not your league, not your team. Then move on. Honestly, bet on your team to win. I wasn't Ridley wasn't Calvin Ridley wasn't playing, was betting on his team to win. How, like, I don't know. I feel like there's some hypocrisy here with somebody with how somebody was handling it. However, in this particular situation, if you're betting the under on your team, that can't be allowed, I don't think.
So there's a deposition by Mark Ludwig, which was one of the agents. Ludwig realized the purpose of the investigation was criminal in nature, with the sole targets being male Division I student athletes at the University of Iowa and Iowa State University, the court filing reads. Special Agent Ludwig advised his superiors that he would no longer participate in the investigation and required reassignment. He had also said that there were other agents that did not want to participate in it. So I don't know what's going to become of all this. It's just really messy, and it's a real legal mess now, because you have an agent coming out saying that this was illegal. There were no warrants issued. There were no complaints that were being filed. So something is not afoot, as they say. There's something else going behind the scenes there.
Mickey, listen, I don't need you starting drama between me and Rich, all right, bro? Like, I appreciate it, Mickey. I know you told Rich with Angel he was coming out of the bullpen, man, but I'm good. I appreciate the support. I love you, Mickey. I do.
Some other news and notes from around the country that caught my eye. Arizona Athletic Director David Heat out after 7 years with the Wildcats. It didn't help that your head coach that was building something in Arizona in football bolted for Washington. Yeah, so he hired Jed Fish. I think that he probably expected Fish to stay. He didn't. He rolled. And I think that threw a cog in everything. So Arizona's going in a different direction. And again, when coaches leave, or this player does that, or you get investigations, things like this are going to happen. There's a trickle-down effect. So, again, losing your head coach in football, who, like I say, is really starting to build something at Arizona. And, of course, he rolls for Washington, and here we are a week and a half later, and boom, you're out.
Yeah, it's crazy to see that, man. I feel like almost like in the NFL, it's like the GMs have more job security than the head coaches, but it's almost the inverse at the college level. Like, when you're the AD, you bring your guy in. If he leaves, like, he just left you half to dry.
Yeah, and again, look at Michigan. What if Harbaugh leaves? What are the repercussions going to be? Who are they going to go after? I know Les Miles is a name that has always been thrown out there over the last 10, 15 years. He played at Michigan. He played under Bo Schembechler. He had great success at LSU. Now, he took the Kansas job, and that didn't go so well. He hasn't really – you haven't heard his name in the last couple of years. But I have a feeling if Harbaugh bolts for the NFL, Brian Kelly's name has come up. Would he leave LSU after 2 years? I think Les Miles would do that. He is a Big Ten type of coach. So, again, we'll see.
I mean, the Mad Hatter back on the sidelines would be awesome.
Just some other stuff. Ohio State lands Alabama transfer quarterback Julian Sayin. He was one of the top quarterbacks in the nation. Man, Ohio State, I'm telling you, through the transfer portal, then you hire Bill O'Brien as your offensive coordinator. Some of the kids that they've been getting through the transfer portal, now Ryan Day doesn't have to worry about calling offensive plays, takes the whole pressure. If they are not the favorite to win the national title next year, there's something wrong. I think it'll be between Ohio State. I think Texas will be up there. I don't think Michigan will be, especially if Harbaugh leads. I think those will be the two top teams as far as national title contenders, and then you got to throw in maybe like Ole Miss, like who else? Like maybe I wouldn't throw Florida State in there. I think they'll have to retool. But yeah, man, Ohio State's had a good, say good free agent offseason.
Listen, Nebraska's going to establish themselves as a contender this year. That's all I'm saying. Matt Rule's building something here, man. He's crushed the portal. He's gotten some gotten to be able to decommit and commit to Nebraska. Listen, talk Ohio State up all you want. Nebraska's going to be a force to be reckoned with this year.
Okay. All right, it's 8:51, January 23rd, 2024. Angel, like you can like cut this little snippet of what he just said. So, my Florida Gators, the NCAA is investigating Florida football regarding recruitment of Jaden Rashada in 2022. Of course.
What do they do?
Let's see. I'm just trying to read the article. The article that I'm reading is by Stuart Mandel and Chris Vanini. Blah, blah, blah. Person who was interviewed as well as the Tampa Bay Times reported Friday that the NCAA sent the school a notice of inquiry last summer, though the letter did not specify the subject of the investigation. The person interviewed, who was granted anonymity, of course, in order to discuss the matter, said he was asked about the transfer who committed to Florida that year as well. Rashada was a four-star recruit from Northern California in the class of 23, was the subject, and I remember this, was the subject of a wild NIL bidding war in 2022 involving boosters at Florida and Miami. On November 10th, 2022, Rashada, who had previously committed to Miami, signed a deal with the now defunct Gator Collective, okay, promising a staggering $13.85 million over 4 years. Yet, Athletic reported last February, Rashada announced his commitment to Florida that night.
He signed a deal and then announced his commitment?
Yeah. However, and it's just this again, a mess. The collective reneged on the deal less than a month later. Rashada still signed with Florida during the December signing period, but did not enroll in January and asked for a release from his letter of intent. He subsequently signed with Arizona State, where he started the Sun Devils season opener and played in 3 games last season.
Yeah, the NIL is awesome. This is the best, man. I hope we hear more of these over the years. These are my favorite stories.
So you're going to make close to $14 million over 4 years. You sign on a dotted line that night, and then less than a month later, they said, we're going to renege it.
This stuff reminds me of Blue Mountain State, that TV show. That's exactly what this reminds me of. I love it.
Mickey Delaney, Jeff Fush moved upstream. Angel, but I'm bummed. This is the state, ladies and gentlemen, of college football. I mean, it's not going to stop here. You're just going to hear about stuff like this all the time. Florida, you have Ohio State linemen not happy that they're not getting paid enough. I mean, what's next?
Oh, this is awesome.
What's next? The safeties aren't going to get paid enough.
This is so great.
It's a bidding war, man. Washington wide receiver Hermie Bernard is following his coach DeBoer to Alabama. Not really going to make that much of a difference. He's a decent receiver. In-state 5-star quarterback George McIntyre picks Tennessee. Big get for them. Tennessee, they had a great season 2 years ago, and then Herndon Hooker went down with that injury. Big blow to them. I thought they were a playoff football team, and then it just all went to hell. Last year they had a decent season. But again, you're in the same division as Georgia. I think Tennessee's a little bit of a team on the rise. Again, you still have to contend with the SEC, and I'll say this about the SEC, Dave. Now that Texas and Oklahoma are coming in, the SEC. God bless you, by the way. The SEC, I think, is now going to become like the Pac-12 was, where they just beat up on one another. I think what you're going to see this particular season is there will not be an undefeated season going into the SEC championship game. No team in the SEC this coming year is going to go undefeated. Talent's too great. Yeah, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, it's just the days of teams going undefeated in the SEC are over.
Don't tell ESPN that.
No,
Yeah.
there's no. Georgia's not going to
that.
go undefeated. Alabama's not going to go undefeated. LSU's not going to go undefeated. Texas and Oklahoma aren't going to go undefeated. Ole Misses are going to go undefeated. It's just not going to happen. And then Greg Sankey can bitch, piss, and moan again like he did back in the beginning of December, where he made the Sesame Street analogy, where one of these things doesn't belong. I lost a lot of respect for him. If he's going to pander to the lowest common denominator as the commissioner, I guess he has that right. But again, as far as the SEC goes, still going to be a juggernaut. There's no team next year that's going to go undefeated.
But real quick, back to the Tennessee quarterbacks. There's a Tennessee quarterback going into the Hall of Fame.
Todd Helton?
Yeah, Todd Helton. Peyton Manning congratulated him, said it was so great to be your backup.
Played for the Rockies. Didn't he? Didn't Todd Helton play for the Rockies?
He played for the Rockies,
yeah. And just like you said, the side note, Todd Helton did start in front of Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning, there you go. Peyton Manning never beat my Gators, but Peyton Manning graduates. Then you had T. Martin come in, and they win a national title.
Yep.
And they beat Florida State. You mentioned a quarterback for Tennessee. I'm trying to pull up, and of course, very, very slow. I don't know if it's because this is confused. If it's confused about the weather. George McIntyre was a 5-star quarterback who played at Brentwood Tennessee Academy. He committed to Tennessee on Monday morning. He was ranked number 15 overall and number 3 quarterback in the class of 2025. He chose Tennessee over Alabama. So, good pickup for them anyway.
You want to know who else got a 5-star recruit? The Nebraska Huskers with Dylan Raiola.
Okay. You're going to keep preaching on that until the season starts. And then you're going to, I'm telling you, what did you say the win total was going to be?
I said they get 9.
Yeah. You have much to learn, young Padawan.
In rule we trust, baby.
And I see in the green room, it's before 9 o'clock, but I see Mr. Bernie Wilson is sitting in the green room. So, Angel, if you want to bring him up, let's bring him up. There he is. Oh, there he was. I still see you sitting in the green room over there.
What's up, guys? Hey, I remembered this time.
There you go, Bernie. Sorry we had to reschedule so many times, but thanks for coming on.
That's fine, no problem. Sorry, the lighting in my house stinks, but that's the best I can do.
That's okay. So let's talk about San Diego State. Obviously, the Brady Hoke era is over.
Thank God.
My man.
Well, look, he was a decent guy, but first of all, he left San Diego State after 2 seasons for his quote-unquote dream job of Michigan, and then lasted 4 years there before getting fired. San Diego State brought him back as a D-line coach under his pal Rocky Long, and then when Long, quote-unquote, retired or left because he didn't like it anymore, the AD took the lazy way out and promoted Hoke back into the job. And, so several bad years of football followed. I mean, that was just, a lazy, stupid move by the AD. So,
Bernie, I love it, man. Coming out throwing haymakers.
Hey, I've covered this town for 30 years, seen a little bit of good ball and an awful lot of bad ball. And of course, then the school comes out and says that Hoke, quote unquote, retired with 3 years left on his contract. Not many guys retire with 3 years left on their contract. And that was months after the baseball coach, quote unquote, retired with 3 years left on his contract. So, it's if you want a job writing PR fiction, apply for a job at San Diego State.
Where did
So
it all go? What did it all go wrong after the 2021 season? Because they went 12-2 that year and they won their bowl game. So where did it all go wrong in the last couple of years?
just bad offense. They couldn't recruit a quarterback. They had a bad and boring offense, which is, that's just a recipe for thousands of empty seats. And it just, they couldn't recruit. And then I'm getting my years mixed up because I'm old and time flies. The 2022 season, I think they were like 2-3 and converted a safety to quarterback and did okay. But it's just you think that they could do better out here. I guess they were still playing in the shadow of the Pac-12, which is gone. But God rest its soul. But it was just, if you can't have an exciting, high-scoring offense, you're not. San Diego's a front-runner town. There's a million things to do here, and if you don't put a good product on the field. And it was doubly embarrassing because they had a brand new stadium, and so far the biggest crowds have been soccer crowds. The record at Snapdragon is not a San Diego State game. It's when Wrexham, the Welsh side, made famous by Welcome to Wrexham, played Man U here. I guess it was last summer. Yeah, in July. Practically sold the place out. The San Diego Wave, the women's team with Alex Morgan, has had massive crowds. And San Diego State has yet to have a football sellout. Technically, they claimed that the opener in 2022 against Arizona was a sellout, but it was 100 degrees at kickoff, and 9/10 of the crowd was seeking shade that really wasn't readily available because they built it without shade structures. So, it's if it were Little League, I wouldn't be so critical, but it's college, and they haven't been good, they haven't been attractive, and they haven't done the one thing you have to do, and that's put fans in the seats.
Dave?
Yeah, Bernie, you mentioned recruitment, man. What do you think's the biggest issue with recruitment, and how can they adjust it?
Well, I think they have with the new coach, Sean Lewis. But, when you have a defensive minded coach and just uninspiring ball, kids want to go somewhere else. I mean, kids want to go to the Pac-12. Well, they did want to go to the Pac-12. I mean, the schools to the north, USC, UCLA, the schools to the east, Arizona State. Not that they're great schools, but kids want to win or at least have a chance to win. Just like in baseball, San Diego State should be in the College World Series every year based on talent alone in this area. I mean, you can play baseball 350 days a year here. I mean, it does rain, but you get some rainouts. But, San Diego State and USD have never been to even a super regional. So coaches have had a hard time keeping local talent here. And it's just, the San Diego State basketball team has done well under Steve Fisher and then Brian Dutcher. They made it to the national championship game last year, but the other sports have just had a hard time. And, Sean Lewis, clearly, at least he's changed the mindset. He's young, he's energetic, he's tall. He's bringing what should be an exciting brand of football here. The Aztec Fast, which is a play on whatever it was at Kent State, Flash Fast or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it's supposed to be fast. And they have attracted some offensive players either via the transfer portal or commitments. So, that it's promising, but they've yet to play a game. So, some people out here have called them a sleeping giant. And, well, you got to be a giant to be sleeping, first of all. But they've got a lot to prove, but at least there's some potential there for some, fast-paced, offensive action that fans want to see. They don't want to see a plodding, 10-7 game or 13-10. And, San Diego State got beat by some really lost games they should not have lost. Granted, any game could go any way, but they really looked awful in some of their games last year. And it was quite apparent about midseason on, if not sooner, that, Hoke was toast, no, whether he was fired, resigned, or retired, whatever. So, they had to make a move. And, so far, at least it's promising.
Well, and as far as the offensive woes go, it affected the defense as well, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If the offense was 3 and out, then the defense is on the field too long and got gassed. And obviously, as we've had some great ball coaches in our town, including Marty Schottenheimer and Mike McCoy, and they did tell us that you got to score at least one more point than the other team, and it's hard to do when your offense is incapable of doing so.
What does Sean Lewis bring to the table then from Colorado as far as is he more well balanced offensively? Does he mix it up well?
Yeah, I mean, he likes to throw the ball, stretch the field, all the cliches, but he does preach balance. But I think the excitement will be in the passing game. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember him when he was at Kent State. And, obviously Colorado had some problems last year. It had the promising 2-0 start before the, bus smashed into the concrete wall, and then Lewis was demoted from play calling duties for the last month of the season. But he at least he got out of that situation and got back into a head coaching gig, and he's gotten a couple of quarterback recruits, a couple of wide receiver recruits, the running back Keenan Christian, who had been at SC before transferring a couple of years ago, local kid. He announced he's staying. So, I think they do want to be balanced, but again, the excitement should be through the air. So, we'll see. I think their opener is an exciting one. It's Texas A&M Commerce. So if they don't beat Texas A&M Commerce, the Sean Lewis era will be off to a terrible start.
Dave?
I will say that they're too afraid to play my Idaho Vandals, and I've told the AD, and I told Hoke that too, and they both agreed.
Bernie, you've been in this media game for a long time, and you mentioned over 30 years. Just to switch gears a little bit, if you had any specific advice you give to somebody new coming up, something that you think could help somebody out, any knowledge you pass on, what's one of the best things you could give to somebody coming up in the arena?
Go into public relations. Sadly, journalism is dying. If people have their heart set on being a sports writer, sportscaster, podcaster, whatever, by all means, follow your dreams, but pencil out the finances first. And I have no problem saying that. I mean, the LA Times just laid off 100 some people. Sports Illustrated shut down. My field is just we're a dying breed. So ponder things very carefully, and be sure to look at what annual salaries are by all means, because a box full of newspaper clippings doesn't pay the mortgage. So, I hate to sound that way, but it's true. So just be very careful if you want to go into journalism. Otherwise, get a law degree and become an agent or something like that. Or you could work in a front office. Theo Epstein, he was a PR assistant. Of course, that was just a place to stash him before he went on to greatness. But yeah, he worked in the PR department of the Padres for a few years, while he was going to law school at the University of San Diego and getting passing grades without having to go to class. I got to know him very well, but it's sort of funky to look back at things, and here's a guy who pulled two franchises out of the depths of despair, and he was a one-time PR assistant with the then pretty terrible San Diego Padres. So, you can do a lot of things in sports. Just make sure it's something that pays the bills.
So Bernie, I gotta get your take on again. It's now the Pac-2
Yeah.
essentially, and then you have the Mountain West, and of course the Pac-2 are gonna play teams from the Mountain West. What's more likely to happen? The Mountain West saying, "Okay, we're gonna go over and keep the Pac-12's history intact, that conference intact," or you think that eventually Washington State and Oregon State are going to say, "All right, we're just going to join the Mountain West."
That's a $10 billion question or whatever. The early thinking after the Pac 12 imploded, and I'm a Pac 12, I'm a Vandal, but my wife is a USC grad. Our youngest son's a UCLA grad. I love Bill Walton. The whole Conference of Champions thing. That was really sad to see that thing die literally overnight one night. The early thinking was that the Pac 2, Wazoo, and Oregon State would try to forge ahead. Well, like you said, with the history, the tradition, and all the millions of dollars they get to keep, and add some of the best Mountain West teams. But now it looks like, they're going to play 6 football games against Mountain West teams for at least the next 2 years. But the Mountain West teams aren't going to be able to move up into the whatever it's going to be, if I read that right. But again, in the realignment thing, what's true today might not be true tomorrow. So I guess we probably shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. But it does seem to make sense that they would try to keep what they have in the name of the Pac, whatever the number is going to be, rather than give up and drop down to the Mountain West. I don't think that the reconstituted Pac, whatever it may not be able to save its Power Five designation, and certainly wouldn't look like a Power Five even if it is so in name. But it seems that they would try to keep that rather than dropping down to a group of 5. But again, it's like if you don't like the weather now, wait 5 minutes and it's probably going to change.
Right, Dave?
Yeah, Bernie. So, I mean, we're talking about conferences and realignment now. The prevailing thought is that they're headed to super conferences. So, what's your thought on that? We've gotten opinions on that over the past couple of weeks. Where do you see the whole landscape of college football in general heading?
It just, I'm close to retirement, so therefore I'm close to really not caring where it goes. It's sad because I think the game has been ruined by all this. I'm old enough to remember what they had: the Big Eight, the Big 12, the Southwest Conference, the Southeast. There were 5 or 6 bowl games on January 1st, and ultimately that decided the national championship, except for the year that BYU, who'd they beat in '84? They won the Holiday Bowl, and 10 or 12 days before New Year's Day, and won the national champ. Were voted national champions. But it makes no sense. Like, again, I grew up Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 because I grew up in Idaho, so we're close to Wazoo, and married a USC alum. We had a Bruin kid. The Rose Bowl used to mean something, but now, it just seems ridiculous that you have 2 LA schools that are going to have to fly to the Midwest and East Coast, and not just in football and basketball, but the women's gymnastics team, the baseball team, the women's softball team, tennis. It just seems mindless. And I've seen that Cal, which is ACC bound, true ACC roots out there in Berkeley. Both Cal and UCLA are having big financial problems in the athletic departments, and that's only going to get. And granted, though, they're going to be getting some big coin from the Big Ten, but it's just not. It's terrible for appearances' sake. And I think Chip Kelly said his suggestion was to just have like a commissioner of football. You have two major divisions, the big boys and then the little boys. That might be cool. It's probably the most widely accepted thing Chip Kelly has said in his UCLA tenure. But it's for old guys like me, it just is. It's sort of disappointing. It's going to be really weird to see USC playing its Big Ten opener next fall, and then UCLA playing its Big Ten opener. And the Apple Cup's not going to mean it. I mean, I know the Cougars hate the Huskies; they always have, and probably hate them extra more. But it's not a Pac-12 rivalry
Mm-mm.
anymore. But thank God for my gutty little Vandals. We did the right thing and dropped down from. We made a really stupid move from FCS, used to be Division One AA, back in my college glory days, up to FBS because we had a president and an AD who were morons. But we dropped down and have become an FCS power again.
Right.
Not powerful enough to make it to the semis and then the finals, but I love that style of ball. That size of ball, the Big Sky Conference. You got Nodak and Sodak, powerhouses. The Jackrabbits won it all. That's what I love the most and will follow the most. The rest of it's just, I'm still backed up 2 or 3 realignments ago, trying to figure out what schools are in what conferences.
Well, I've said this before. Greg Sankey actually opened the floodgates by letting Texas and Oklahoma in last year.
Yeah.
When Texas and Oklahoma bounced to the SEC, I knew it was coming next because I've said this before, but I said this like 5-10 years ago. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to have all this realignment, and this is just the first step into a super conference being formed. It's not going to happen next year, may not happen in 3 years, but I'll say within 5 to 10 years out of all this, they're eventually going to form one big super conference.
You're probably spot on. It's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. Now, I do like the expanded playoffs.
Oh yeah.
That definitely makes sense. But that then will make, the 4-team playoff made all the other bowls irrelevant except for the Rose Bowl when it wasn't hosting a semifinal or final. Because again, I'm old school, West Coast, love the Rose 2:00 every New Year's Day. Get your Doritos and hazy IPAs lined up and watch the Rose Bowl, and then fall asleep and wake up and watch the end of the Sugar Bowl. But the playoff, the expanded playoff is good, but it's going to make all the other bowls just even more so irrelevant than they already are.
Dave, you get the last question, my friend, before we let this gentleman go.
Bernie, man, well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate your honesty and your straightforward nature. I guess you mentioned the Rose Bowl just now. So, what is your favorite Rose Bowl memory growing up?
Actually, my favorite Rose Bowl memory overall is seeing the Rolling Stones there in 2019.
I love it.
Although I do remember when Ronnie Harmon fumbled 4 times.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was 86 or
Wow.
something. My grandfather was still alive, and he was over spending time with us in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he was, he is obviously an old timer, and he couldn't, he was just shaking his head and muttered a few obscenities about that young man can't hold on to the football, can he? And with a very spicy word, adjective for the football. So I think that one stands. And then Ronnie Harmon ended up with the Chargers, and I covered the Chargers for several years. And Ronnie's best quote was, he was just a very shy guy and never wanted to talk. And you ask him, hey, you got a few minutes? And he would say no. And then you try again, and he goes, what part of no is it that you don't understand? Is it the N or the O? And so and then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, dude, you're the guy who fumbled 4 times. And you're telling me no. But then after his football career, he ran some indoor track and couldn't have been friendlier. But anyway, the Stones really rocked the place 4 or 5 years ago, and it was awesome. So those are my Rose Bowl memories.
Yeah, that's awesome, Bernie. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, Bernie, thanks so much for coming on. Tell people how they can get a hold of you or follow your articles online.
Best way is probably on, I refuse to call it the alphabet letter, Twitter, just at Bernie Wilson, BernieWilson. And I can handle the heat, so go at it, rip me apart. I do not care. I love banter, though. Marty Schottenheimer loved banter, and I like banter too. So yeah, mostly best way is on Twitter. But if you like cats, I post pictures of my cats on Instagram. Or our cat.
You know,
So
in the
that
fall, in the fall this year, I'm actually thinking about taking a vacation and doing a college football game and watching it at Idaho, and
you
then
should.
traveling all the way over to Montana and watching the Grizzlies play the following week.
You should do that. I mean, the Kibbe Dome, there's no better arena in the world. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I mean, heck, we used to do intramural track and basketball in the Kibbe Dome because of the configuration they had there. And then Grizzly Stadium over Missoula's just a classic, awesome town with a ton of awesome old school bars downtown. And then you can walk to the stadium. I saw Pearl Jam there in 2018. So, as a youth, football was the big thing, but at my age, it's concerts. But no, that would be a great trip. Those are both awesome towns, awesome football stadiums, and you'll see some great football. I mean, the Vandals are back on the map. The Grizz, even though they're our big rival, kudos to them. They made it all the way to the championship game. But I think you'd really enjoy the beautiful cities, beautiful scenery. And then if you make it to San Diego, we'll do some fish tacos and margaritas.
There you go. Bernie, again, thanks for coming on, and you have a good night, my friend.
Anytime, guys. Great chatting with you.
We'll talk soon. Thanks.
Okay, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Fantastic conversation with Mr. Bernie Wilson there. So
yeah, he's awesome, man.
Brings it correct right off the gate.
That was so great, man. That's why I asked some stuff about, like, I wanted his opinions on, like, being in the journalism industry for so long, or what his best memories are. Guys like that always have great stories. I want to make it like open ended, like just go ahead and talk, man.
Yeah, I'll have to. I mean, I've never been to the Rose Bowl, obviously, but I can go back farther than you can. It's just like watching a Rose Bowl on TV. My greatest Rose Bowl moment for me was sitting there watching the entirety of the Rose Bowl in 2006 when nobody gave Texas a shot against USC, and Vince Young put on a show for the ages and knocked off, back then that was the evil empire with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, LeGarrette Blount. Was it LeGarrette Blount? I don't know if it was LeGarrette Blount. No, I was thinking of somebody else. But nobody gave them a shot. And there Vince Young is doing his thing. It was absolutely incredible. Only to be matched by Deshaun Watson like years later. He had a similar game against Alabama in a national title game. But, again, he's right. Old farts like me, again, I can remember when it was the Big Eight and it was the Southwest Conference and the SEC and the Pac-8. That's going way, way back. Everything was regional. Everything was tribal. The Rose Bowl, it was the Big Ten champion against the Pac-12 champion. And I get times change. You have to change with the times. I'm glad they went to the playoff because, the BCS and the BS and all that crap just wasn't working. And I'm fine with a 12-team playoff. I don't like realignment, man. I'll say it till the day I die. I can't stand it. Again, Dave, you like the whole NIL thing. I don't.
I just love chaos and drama, man. Also, Mark, thanks for saying great show, man. Appreciate you checking in, dude. Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir.
No, I just love chaos, man. I want the entertainment and the drama. If that's what it is, that's what it takes. Cool. There's going to be conspiracy theories every year for the next 5 years about NIL deals, booster clubs, who's paying who money. That's going to be great.
Yeah, and
this is a 30 for 30 waiting to happen. This could be a whole HBO series at some point, the start of the NIL, the early days of the NIL. 20 years from now, they're going to do a whole HBO series on this.
But like he was talking, like Washington State, it's the Apple Cup. I know that they're trying to keep that game like year in and year out, but it just doesn't have the same. It's just like Washington against Washington State now.
Yeah,
what I mean?
Talk about the Apple Cup and all those like rivalry trophies and stuff they do. I just thought it'd be interesting if college football had that be the first game, right? Like the Daytona 500 for NASCAR. That's like their Super Bowl. You kick off the season with that. I almost feel like that would be a cooler way to do it. Have that be the very first game, have those big matchups, week one, get everybody pumped up. Like that, to me, I don't know. You'd be talking about it all offseason. Huskers talk about beating Hawkeyes all offseason. Like you're getting amped up for that stuff. I don't know. I feel like that'd be an interesting turn on it and would make those games matter more with the direction of the way college football is going.
Now, if these teams are joining different conferences, and let's just say, I don't know, like UCLA and USC are open to the Big Ten. Again, they're going to try and keep that game every year. As far as that goes, they'll probably play it in the Rose Bowl, because that's just what they've done year in and year out, is played that game in the Rose Bowl. But can you imagine if, like, I don't know, let's say Alabama would have jumped to, the Big 12. Well,
now we're talking. Now we're talking chaos.
The Alabama Auburn, the Iron Bowl, just wouldn't have that same appeal to it.
Well, make it week one, though. Like if you make it week one, that's how you can still build the hype around it.
You're going to have detractors on that too, because just like Michigan, Ohio State, can you imagine Michigan, Ohio State playing the first game of the year? No, it's not going to happen. You know why? Because the weekend of Thanksgiving, they've always played that game.
That's all that weekend. You're not wrong, but I'm just saying, if you want to make those games matter, as with all this realignment, that's a way to do it. You have to think outside the box. That's all I'm saying.
That's just like with the Daytona 500. Yeah, I get it. It's February. It's warm weather. The whole 9 yards. You're a month away from spring. I think they should put that race at the end of the year, because it'll throw everything into a whack, everything into chaos. That's what I think they should do with the Daytona 500. I think it would go over better than them running it in February. But that's another show. That's a show on Sundays, my friends, Sunday mornings on the No Filter Network, Green, White, Checkered. Unfortunately, not sure we're going to have a show this week, but we'll see. I forgot to ask Bernie about, I was taking a look at San Diego State's schedule for 2024. It's brutal. If you go and take a look at it, it's for 2024. Now, he said they opened up with, I'll have to pull the schedule back up here real quick. I know, Angel, we're pressed for time. 2024 schedule. They open with a
warning.
What's that? 2-minute warning?
You put a 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. They play a cupcake first, but they got to play the likes of Oregon State, Cal, Central Michigan, Washington State, Boise State, Air Force, Hawaii, New Mexico, UNLV, Utah State, and Wyoming. That's brutal, even for like San Diego State. They might win that first game, but they might be underdogs in like the rest of them. So again, 2-minute warning. Angel's being a wise ass, like he normally is. I know he's just giving me the time. I'm sure he'll chime in.
Sponsors.
Because, yes, Mustaki's Authentic Heroes and Pete's Famous Pizza. If you're in the Philadelphia area, check them out. Get a grip. Neff and Delco Dave, you're coming late to the program.
Good to see you. Get a grip.
Mr. Get a Grip. Again, if you're in the Philadelphia area, check out Mustaki's Authentic Heroes and Pete's Famous Pizza. Yeah, I know. I got it the first time. Once again, I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight. Thank you, Bernie Wilson, for joining us. Producer Angel Martinez, thanks for watching the Line of Scrimmage with Ryan and Dave on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. Thank you, Angel. So many things to think about. I'm 55. I'm old. What are you going to do? But again, thanks for everybody tuning in tonight. Thanks for everybody who's going to check us out on the replay. And again, thanks to Delco Dave for joining me as a co-host as well. Again, thanks to Bernie Wilson. Very informative, great guy. And again, we will see you next Tuesday on the Line of Scrimmage.
Nailed it.